Welcome into the weekend wrap-up edition of Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. I'm Maurice Patton. That's Wade Neely. We will be here with you for the next couple of hours talking local, regional, and national sports content. And it's good to be back because last week was really disjointed. We were all kind of out of pocket covering some high school volleyball because we all wear a lot of hats, but it's good to be back here with Mr. Neely and good to be back here with all of our viewers or both of our viewers, depending on who you listen to, and talk a little sports. Plenty to talk. Wade, what's up?
What's happening, Mo? Good to have you back. You are exactly right. We held down the fort as best we could on Friday, but just wasn't the same. But you're back in the saddle. We got a big show. We got a big week. Yeah, let's do it. Final week of October, spooky season in full effect. Let's rip, baby.
You got big plans for the end of the week, right? Right, producer Mark? You going to hook us up on Friday?
Yeah, I'll do it.
I say, I don't know if I trust the way you just chimed in like that. It's more tricks than treats, it sounds like, on Friday for producer Mark than anything. But
yeah, we might off more than we could chew with that one, but we'll see how it goes. Going to be up for today. In the second hour, we're going to catch up with CHAREAN Williams from Pro Football Talk to get a little 30,000-foot view of what's going on here in town with a lot of folks' favorite team. Anyway, not a good weekend for the Tennessee Titans, and got worse for one of them, or better, maybe. Here today. We'll talk more about that with CHAREAN in the next hour. We will also be talking some college football. It's another Monday, and it's another Black Monday for a college football coach. We'll tell you who, if you don't already know, here in a bit. Good weekend for our Division I, our FBS football programs here in Tennessee this weekend. We'll talk a little bit more about that later in the show. We will also talk some World Series, Game 3 tonight. And Wade, this is your favorite day. I should have led with this. I forgot. That's an oversight on my part, but I will yield to you because I know how meaningful this day is to you.
Well, it's not just me, right? It's all sports fans across the world, lovers. That's what all brings us to this show, and that's what today is all about. The sports equinox is here, ladies and gentlemen. You got NFL, MLB, NBA, and NHL all on the same day. Doesn't happen every year, doesn't happen all the time, but we got one last year, and we're going to be blessed with another tonight. This is as good as it gets on the sports calendar.
There are, 2 hockey games? There are 3 NBA games. We've got Monday Night Football, and, of course, we've got Game 3. So, yeah, it's all coming together here on this Monday. And I guess it pretty well has to be a Monday just about for it to happen. Maybe a Thursday with Thursday Night Football. But, yeah, the sports equinox. So, y'all enjoy it. Get your remote control thumbs all limbered up. A lot going on this evening. We will get into all of it. And I guess, Wade, we can just go ahead and use that to segue into this weekend's results and today's schedule on the Rundown.
This is the Rundown.
Rundown time is here, ladies and gentlemen, but before we tap in, we want to remind you that each and every single Monday, our Rundown is brought to you by our friends at Zion Christian Academy. ZCA offers a faith-based, Christ-centered education in Murray County. So give them a call today. That number is 931-388-5831, or you can visit them online at zioneagles.org and schedule an appointment today. Once again, that's Zion Christian Academy, prepared for college and equipped for purpose.
Let's get started with some Friday night football results. Battle Creek with a 40-26 win over Glencliff. It was Baylor defeating Ensworth 35-21. Beach Downs Portland 41-7. Bolivar Central blanks Loretto 14-0. Clarksville with a 25-14 win over Andre Adams and the Antioch Bears. It was Dixon County outlasting Clarksville Northeast 17-13. Kirkwood 35, Clarksville Northwest nothing. Davidson Academy 38, Columbia Academy nothing. Providence Christian with a 38-28 win over Concord Christian. Creekwood blanked Montgomery Central 38 nothing. East Nashville with a 55-0 win over Houston County. It was East Robertson 32, Greenwood out of Bowling Green 16. Fairview 63-12 over Cheatham County. Brentwood Academy all over Father Ryan 49-7. And there was a wicked hit on an interception return that I happened to see on Twitter over the weekend. Hope that kid's okay. But Brentwood Academy with a 49-7 win over Father Ryan. Richland defeated Fayetteville 37-22. Defensive struggle here as Franklin defeats Summit 8-6. Franklin Christian with a 22-21 win over Clarksville Academy. It was Lebanon 35, Gallatin 21. Giles County defeating Forest 46-28 at the Brickyard. Battleground Academy 56, Good Pasture 14. Franklin Road Academy with a 31-0 win over Grace Christian of Franklin. Springfield defeating Greenbrier 49-8. Waverly edging Harpeth 21-14. Henry County with a 45-7 win over Kenwood. It was Station Camp 51, Hunters Lane 20. Brentwood blocks a field goal inside the final minute, defeats Independence 16-14. Clay County with a 48-0 win over Innovation Academy. It was Knoxville Catholic 28, Christ Presbyterian Academy 26. Lincoln County edging Lawrence County 37-36. Centennial with a 45-20 win over Lawson. Lewis County defeats Mount Pleasant 27-16. Liberty Creek 25, Watertown 22. Briarcrest Christian 34, Lipscomb Academy 13. And Marshall County defeating Spring Hill 61-13.
More scores coming in from Friday night. Macaulay defeating NBA 48-21. Cane Ridge shutting out McGavock. That score was 42-0. Cookeville with a 17-10 win over Mount Juliet. Friendship Christian cruising 63-20 versus Mount Juliet Christian. Nashville Christian with a 65, speaking of cruising, 65-12 win over Easel Harding. Nolensville 35, Rossview 6. Oakland blanking Stewart's Creek 49-0. It was Page 48-0 versus Hillsboro. Pearl Cone, I like that there. 49-48, and then Pearl Cone 47-0 over White House. Columbia scored 45, didn't shut out Pope John Paul, but it was good enough for the win, 45-42. Ravenwood 42, Coffee County 7. Riverdale with a 2-touchdown victory over Rockvale, 28-14, your final there. Blackman topping Siegel on Friday night, 37-31. Smyrna 42, Laverne nothing. It was Decatur County Riverside with a 34-22 win over Summertown. Sycamore with a 16-13 win over White House Heritage. Low-scoring affair, and that game actually went to overtime. So 16-13, your final in OT on Friday night. Trinity Christian 42, DCA 7. It was West Creek 14, John Overton 2. Flirting with the scoreagami with that one there. 14-2, your final again in favor of West Creek. Westmoreland defeating Maplewood 21-20. Tough luck for Whites Creek, who has fallen on hard times here. They fall again on Friday to Stratford 20-6. It's Green Hill 42, Wilson Central 13, and Eagleville caps our Friday night high school football scoreboard 33-0 versus Zion Christian. Volleyball action from Friday. We touched on some of these during the show Friday, but we have all the finals now as Eagleville knocked off Gordonsville 3-1. Summit defeated Brentwood 3-2, and Valor Collegiate sweeping Dyer County 3-0. NBA score going back to Friday. The Heat with 146-114 over the Memphis Grizzlies. Not kind to NSC on Friday night as Inter Miami wins that first match in the best-of-3 series 3-1 down in South Florida. MLB action, more on the World Series later, but Game 1 went heavily in favor of the Toronto Blue Jays. That score was 11-4 over the Dodgers.
Saturday, high school girls soccer action as the winners will make their way to Chattanooga for state tournament play this week. Houston with a 7-0 win over Clarksville. Donaldson Christian defeated Concord Christian 2-1. Evangelical Christian with a 2-0 win over Battleground Academy. It was Liberty Creek 6, Fairview 0. Franklin with a 4-0 win over Gallatin. University School of Jackson 3, Franklin Road Academy 2. Summit with a hat trick from Mississippi State commit Summer Riley defeats Hendersonville at Hendersonville 3-2. Knoxville Webb defeated Father Ryan 2-1. It was Merrill Hyde 11, Lead Academy 0. Siegel 1-0 over Ray County. Signal Mountain defeats Murfreesboro Central 4-1. Station Camp with a 9-0 win over Sycamore. Smith County doubling up STEM Academy 2-1. And it was Stewart's Creek 3, Walker Valley 1.
College football scores from Saturday. We start at the NAIA level where Cumberland defeats Campbellsville 35-33. Western Illinois with a 17-16, 1 point to the good for the Leathernecks there over TSU 17-16. Vanderbilt defeating Missouri 17-10. Crazy game. More on that a little bit later in this show. Austin Peay with a 56-28 win over North Alabama. And UT, that's the Vols, defeating UK, that's the Wildcats, 56-34. Preds in a shootout on Saturday night, defeating the Kings 5-4. The Grizzlies with a nice win, 128-103 over the Pacers. And the Dodgers even the World Series in game number 2 with a 5-1 victory over the Blue Jays.
Sunday, NFL action. The Titans go north to Indianapolis, come home with a 38-14 loss. On the ice, it was the Dallas Stars 3, the Nashville Predators. Tonight's schedule, got to stay up late for this one, 9 o'clock as Memphis goes out to Golden State. You can see it on FanDuel Sports. A little earlier, Washington is at Kansas City in Monday Night Football. That's a 7:15 kickoff. You can see that one on ABC. And Game 3 of the World Series out on the West Coast. Toronto goes to the Los Angeles Dodgers. That broadcast will begin at 7 on Fox. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes your rundown. Your top story brought to you as always by the fine folks at Piggly Wiggly and Neely's Mill in Columbia. Be sure and check out Daily Deli lunch options available from 11 a.m. until 6 p.m. Also, their hand-cut meats and everything is cost plus 10% at the cash register. Piggly Wiggly, Neely's Mill, Columbia, bringing you our top story. And as we mentioned in the rundown, mentioned earlier in the show, high school volleyball season in the state of Tennessee has concluded. We crowned some champions on Thursday and on Friday. One of those, Summit in Southern Williamson County, picking up their first ever state championship in volleyball in their first ever state tournament appearance. And it was only fitting that the Lady Spartans had to go through Brentwood to do it. Those two teams had met on 4 previous occasions, and it was befitting of a county and district rivalry there. In 5 sets, Summit outlasts the state title contending Lady Bruins, to again pick up their first state championship. Big win for that program, for veteran coach Warren Riker, who started that program when the school opened. So congrats to the Lady Spartans.
Yeah, took care of business. And, hey, if you're going to show up for the first time, you don't know any better, right? You might as well go out and win the whole thing. So definitely had to earn it, it sounded like. And was fun to kind of keep tabs on them from afar last week because the state of Tennessee has got, across all classifications, some loaded talent and some great teams in the sport of volleyball. So no real gimmies. And, yeah, if you're going to show up for your first dance, you might as well go out and win the whole thing. Props to them for getting it done.
Absolutely. Meanwhile, another team that it wasn't new to, Valor Collegiate. I mean, as we were heading into this thing, the talk was everybody else was playing for second place, and surely enough, that was the case. Valor winning it for the second straight year, and I don't think they dropped a set during the week. Swept everybody 3-0. Did Valor Collegiate to win the Class AA state championship, defeating Dyer County out of West Tennessee 3-0 in the finals there.
Yeah, Valor Collegiate, the little engine that could, right? I mean, they burst on the scene and just have really kind of wreaked havoc in a number of different sports, whether that's soccer or volleyball is really where they're kind of their bread and butter these days. And yeah, you're right. From the jump, it kind of felt like everybody was playing for second place, but you still got to go out. You still got to execute. And they did just that. Dominant performance. Yeah, taking those, beating Signal Mountain on Tuesday, Crockett County in the semis on Wednesday, and then cruising versus a pretty strong Dyer County team. Made them kind of light work, as it were, in Friday afternoon's championship game. Big win for Valor Collegiate. And the question kind of will become, right, can anybody beat them next year already? I mean, they just seem somewhat inevitable as long as they're in Class 2A.
Summit wasn't the only team to win their first state championship in volleyball, but Eagleville had been there before in Class A. In fact, this was their 10th state tournament appearance, but it's the first time that they've broken through. They made it to the finals in 99. This time they get it done, defeating Gordonsville, who was also there for the first time, defeated the Lady Tigers 3-1 in that one. So some hardware going back out to Rutherford, or staying in Rutherford County, as it turned out, because all the state championships were played at MTSU's Murphy Center. So Eagleville having to come into town on Highway 99. And again, it was a joyous trip back out as the Lady Eagles defeated Gordonsville 3-1 to win the Class A championship.
Eagleville's used to, winning a title and then not having to drive very far. You can just, you don't even have to buckle up the trophy. You can just kind of leave it out in the seat because you don't got to make a short trip back. Props to them for getting it done. It had been a while. They'd been kind of knocking on the doorstep with appearances in the last 3 or 4 years. But it had been a long time since they'd burst real through. You got to go back to like 99. They had a runner-up finish back then. So never won it. And the volleyball program is looking at the softball and baseball squads there at Eagleville and is, saying, hey, we can win a title too. Kudos to them for getting it done after kind of, knocking on the doorstep a few different times. 21 and 22, they made it to the state tournament, but then kind of fell shy and kind of fell off the state tournament bracket there for a couple of years, but bouncing back with authority, good win for them.
Absolutely. So congrats to all of our winners. Again, 4 or 5 champions coming from the mid-state area because who won AA? Briarcrest defeated CPA in the D2 AA championship. It was Middle Tennessee Christian that won it in D2A on Thursday. So again, a lot of trophies staying close to Middle Tennessee here in volleyball this past weekend as we wrapped up the state volleyball tournament on Thursday and Friday. And I tell you, I had not been to, this is the first year that it's gone back to MTSU for the state championships. They had done this previously, but not recently. And it's a nice little atmosphere, man, when you get all the students in there. I know both Summit student bodies showed up in force, and they were loud and boisterous and plentiful, and it was a nice little atmosphere. So it's great that those schools got out and supported those teams the way that they did over those 2 days. A lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, good tournament run.
Let's go ahead and take a break here.
Run well by the
As we get
TSSAA.
started
Props
on
to
the
them for getting
weekend
it done.
wrap-up edition of Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. When we come back, we'll talk a little college football. Stick around.
got closer. All new Sportsbook, the latest gaming machines, live horse racing, and more. The Mid-Gaming Hall, Kentucky Downs.
Winning just got closer.
Deep in a forest at Nashville Zoo, new creatures here for you to view. Phantoms graced in black and white swing high in trees of dappled light. In rocky crags, tall and steep, small antelopes with nimble feet. A wise old man with beard of white, a sentry perched on stony height. Amidst it all, a hunter lies, with coat of gold and steely eyes. A new adventure just for you. Leopard Forest at Nashville Zoo. Open now.
Busy bee, yeah, busy bee. If you need
Hold on, y'all, hold on. I need to make a call. Hey, this is Brianna with Busy Bee. I'm giving you a call to let you know your technician is on his way.
833
bee, oh, busy bee. Guys, not yet. Not yet.
Busy bee, oh,
Now I'm
busy
ready,
bee.
guys.
Call 775-7833.
Custom Stone Handlers supplies over 600 distributors and suppliers with quality stone products. Along with Riverstone, we produce and distribute over 100 building, landscape, and other bulk products. Our goal is to provide quality products, service, and partnerships to ensure our customers' success. We firmly believe the measure of any person or company is how you treat other people and customers. Give them a call at 931-490-4990 or visit CustomStoneHandlers.com.
Weekend wrap-up continues here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. That's Wade Neely. I'm Maurice Patton. You know, I was flipping back and forth Saturday night between UT Kentucky and A&M LSU, and obviously, you know, sitting there with a remote control in one hand and my phone in the other, monitoring the socials. And man, folks were not happy that were wearing purple and gold over the course of the night, and they were less and less happy as the night progressed. And you know, we've had these conversations on Mondays for the last few weeks, and this time it's Brian Kelly that we're talking about, because the former LSU coach is just that, coming off of that loss at home to Texas A&M. Things been bubbling up down there for a while, and obviously it's a done deal.
Yeah, you know, you wondered when the plug might get pulled, and last week, it just feels like, you know, okay, there's been a little smoke. LSU is the ultimate wild card, you know, in the sense that it feels like they could fire their coach at any given time, win or lose. We've seen national championship coaches fired pretty shortly after winning titles down there, so anything is kind of on the table with these guys. But after the Vanderbilt loss, it really felt like, you know, things not only are going poorly, but there's also something kind of bubbling, as you said, beneath the surface a little bit, and it's just not a great fit. And then, yeah, getting trounced by A&M, flat out embarrassed at home, you know, that was a grim situation. LSU is not supposed to ever lose at night in that stadium, let alone get their absolute pants pulled down. And leading at halftime to get ran out of your own building like that, you really almost, it's hyperbole, of course, but you really almost have no choice but to let Kelly go at that point.
Folks talk about stadium being where dreams come to die, but they're typically talking about the other team. But
Yeah,
LSU falling to 5-3 overall with that loss. I mean, that obviously takes them out of playoff contention. Much you got a lot of folks to climb over top of to get into that 12, and LSU to make that climb. So they got expectations down there, and these performances aren't meeting them. You know, there was talk with there about fit. You know, you always word around coaching hires, Wade, and it was always a question whether or not he was. And I think that with some success, but the success never really came.
no, I hadn't even lived up to, you know, Brian Kelly's probably own internal expectations. At the time of his hiring, it felt like a forced marriage, to say the least. You know, and that's even before you get into the me and my family, you know, at the press conference or out at the basketball game court, right? I mean, it felt forced, but you were willing to accept it if you're LSU a little bit because, okay, this guy has such a strong pedigree. It seems, hey, good coach, great program, great facilities, boatload of Louisiana cash. How could this go wrong? And it didn't take much for it to go really wrong. But not only did Kelly kind of not live up to expectations, but yeah, you lose one game and they're ready to run you out of town in that place in particular. So the fact that it turned so grim so quickly, not necessarily shocked, but yeah, just add one more name to this list that is going to, you know, eventually keep growing here as teams start to pull the plug on some coaches. And you're right, LSU completely an utterly disappointing season. With Nussmeier coming back, it felt like they had all the pieces, they had all the tools. I mean, Mo, that we joked at the time, but I mean, they won their season opener. That was a first under Brian Kelly. And at the time, you're thinking, oh man, they beat number 4 Clemson, and then things just absolutely crumble. They've lost 3 of 4, lost a tough one to Ole Miss, survived versus South Carolina, but yeah, back-to-back losses. And it was the way they lost to Texas A&M that I think really made things kind of easy. When the governor, Mo, is, when I saw the social media post that the governor is kind of examining situations and examining buyouts and, things of that nature. Yeah, pack your bags. The epic wine cellar that he showed off in the Netflix documentary this summer, Brian Kelly, I hope he's got some pretty good insurance on that, because he ain't going to be utilizing the services of that wine cellar anytime soon. He is gone down there on the bayou.
Man, and it's crazy. He is the first of their last 4 coaches to not win a national championship. I mean, Nick Saban, Les Miles, Ed Orgeron, you mentioned that they got rid of him. I mean, if they will get rid of a guy who has won one, then, you're in your 4th year without, and then you turn in some of those performances that they had turned in thus far this fall. Yeah, you're definitely on high alert. Got to be. And I wonder, watching his demeanor on the sideline, the way he was going after a couple of kids and a couple of assistants and that kind of thing during the course of the season, of the course of the game Saturday night. I wonder if he felt it.
I didn't think that. I mean, that's Brian Kelly. I mean, we saw that for seasons at Cincinnati. We saw that at Notre Dame. I mean, that's kind of who he is. And LSU and, the SEC and college football, they can maybe, we've always overlooked some of that stuff, or some folks have at least a little bit, because the guy is winning and had success everywhere he's been. But yeah, I mean, there's a reason he's not necessarily the most likable coach by any means. And yet when you're losing as well, man, that is instant meme fuel, because it was not a good look on Saturday night. And that just paints the picture. Leaving the field, that's crazy. He leaves the field after the game before the team even sings the alma mater. And does that really matter in the grand scheme of things? No, but the optics could not be more horrible in that situation after you get embarrassed at home. Props to Texas A&M. Still don't know necessarily what to make of these guys, but one thing we do know is that they made LSU look absolutely pedestrian in their own building on Saturday night. Hello?
Yeah, I think I think to your point, Wade, the look of it. Yeah, it was the look of.
You there, Mo? Brian Kelly has broke the internet and broke Main Street Sports today, folks.
Yeah, and they're not used to that. Obviously, of them are. So, yeah. Here's a question that I saw, in the last 24 hours or so. With so many, high profile positions being open here all of a sudden, who else might be considering it that maybe chooses not to make a move just because there is going to be so much competition out there in the coaching search arena?
That's a fair question. And that there will be inevitably a school that, whether they admit it or not, probably does go that route. But the fans will be able to see through that, and you got to be real careful. It's one thing to pull the plug early, or say, hey, we're going to give the coach till the end of the season, and then we're going to let him go. Fans will lose interest quickly. And Mo, as much as we care about wins and losses, ADs and presidents and boosters, they care about butts in the seats, and they care about interest more than anything. If you kind of pretty much bring back a lame duck coach, you're not really punting on one season. You're punting practically on 2 seasons. So you better be real, real careful. And it's got to be the right situation where you can kind of smooth things over. But yes, inevitably, it does feel like with so many high-profile jobs that whether they admit it or not will be a case for 1 or 2 schools.
Yeah, and I mean, when you look at some of the jobs that are open, I mean, just here in the last 3 weeks, Penn State, Florida, LSU. I mean, folks talk about blue bloods and kind of throw that phrase around, but those are three that are as blue bloodish as it gets, I would think. I mean, UCLA and Virginia Tech kind of got this thing started, and you don't necessarily look at them as powerhouses in the Power Four structure, but when you see Penn State, Florida, and LSU in successive weeks making midseason coaching changes, it's kind of jarring.
It's jarring, but that speaks to the current element of college football, and there's so much money that's floating in legally, quote unquote, legally now, that if you're the first to market or you got the biggest bucks, now it really may benefit you to be, that first school that's looking to hire. And so the trend has already kind of started. We're also seeing, when you delve into the transfer portal and you see a school, like Indiana turn things around in the blink of an eye in one season, it makes it a really, really hard sell now when your team is kind of toiling a little bit in mediocrity. When you're looking around and you're seeing programs instantly achieve success, it is seemingly a more hotbed or a more pressure cooker situation for these coaches and in these particular high profile schools and leagues now more than ever, it feels like. Mo, you still there? What do you think, producer Mark? We're going to drop Mo for just a second, having some technical issues on his end, but the LSU job coming open, to Mo's point a minute ago, and man, the names are jarring when you talk about high profile openings now coming at these major schools, and a cat and mouse game probably will inevitably develop, and that's kind of the point I just making with Mo. Hopefully, he was able to get back in and riff off of me with that, because it feels like when you see schools like Indiana and you see programs in the SEC that are not necessarily your power players that are kind of achieving some success in kind of quick order, that really puts an extra layer of kind of added pressure on schools like at LSU. LSU was already a school where you pretty much had to win from the jump. But now when you see other schools like a Texas Tech or, like I mentioned a moment ago, Indiana kind of instantly turning things around, the pressure and just ratchets up several degrees at a place like LSU. As I think Mo is back. Welcome back, sir.
Well, it's good to be back, and I apologize for that. Sounds a lot better, man. But one of the things that I think has to be eye-catching across the college football landscape is at this point, we've talked about all of the midseason dismissals that have taken place. Brian Kelly's got a $53 million buyout now. Supposedly, they are negotiating that. And I don't know if it's in his contract what there is to negotiate. I think he has some offsets in there that they wouldn't necessarily have to pay him that money if he gets another job. Now, I don't know if he's going to get another job at the age of 64, but there is a lot of money at this point being paid to folks not to coach. I think the number I saw was 169 million just in the number of mid-season dismissals that we've seen this year. Man, college football, big business.
Yeah, and the funny part about that is LSU AD Scott Woodward. Guess who he hired at Texas A&M, right? Jimbo Fisher. So the man loves to pay lots of money to fire his coach. He loves to hire him, and then he loves to pay exorbitant amounts of money to get rid of him. Not necessarily a stat that you want to be known for if you're LSU AD Scott Woodward.
And you got to wonder when the focus comes on to Scott Woodward when you're throwing around those kind of contracts and that kind of money to pay folks to not coach.
Absolutely. And that's kind of the interesting part and sort of what I was vibing on a minute ago when I'm saying there's so much pressure now, but college football, especially in this current landscape, it's hard to really quantify, if LSU goes out and, a real hot name, obviously not just at LSU, but Florida, elsewhere. We'll just use Lane Kiffin as an example. You bring in Lane Kiffin just based on what you saw at Ole Miss and you know what he can do. And, you presume that things are going to just continue status quo. But if that train kind of goes off the rails ever so slightly, and ever so slightly going off the rails at LSU is not winning the national championship. So that's the key you got to remember there too, right? If it goes off the rails even just a little bit, you're not only setting your school back for a year or two, or if not more, but you're also, looking at another kind of staggering buyout. So the pressure is on the coaches for sure, but the pressure is also on the coaching search firms and ultimately the athletic directors and administrators to try and nail this thing. You're trying to nail down something that's kind of an inexact science to begin with because Kelly was so successful.
Wade, I can't fathom the kind of money that we're talking about here, so maybe that's what creates my perspective. But if I'm Lane Kiffin, I can sit at Ole Miss and keep doing what I've been doing here for the last little bit, and they will put up a statue of me at some point. If I go to Florida where they just got rid of Billy Napier, if I go to LSU where they just got rid of Brian Kelly, that can just as easily be me in 3 or 4 years. I mean, I don't know. I guess I'm just kind of a bird in the hand kind of guy.
Well, and that right, Mo, you're exactly right. But I mean, now more than ever, do you want to swing for the fences? Florida, I guess LSU too. Those are quote unquote, dream jobs or destination jobs. But are you prepared to do that big of a rebuild knowing that everybody else in the league and virtually across all major conferences is slowly winning that arms race? Ole Miss purely an afterthought in those arms races until the last 4 or 5 years. And now things are starting to catch up. We're seeing more parity. We're also seeing some more equality in some regards in terms of budgets and in terms of what schools are willing to spend to win football games. So, there's a lot to be said for maybe not wanting to do that other than pure competitiveness. Obviously, a little bit of an ego element, wanting to win at the highest level. Same reason, right, that we talk about Tony Vitello last week. Why leave for the MLB? Those guys are wired so different, and that's how they got to where they are. You have to have a few screws loose to be successful at an elite level like that. It's always going to be there, but you're right. They could put up a statue in the Grove tomorrow, and he could live there and have a great, great setup, or that's a daunting task to try and think about going to rebuild and restart, no matter how successful the program is historically.
No matter how successful it is, no matter what resources you've got. I am again reminded of the great philosopher Christopher Wallace. More money, more problems.
I mean, there's also, 100% right. But I mean, if you're a coach, this may be in the back of your brain too. I'll try it at Florida. And if it don't work out, guess what? I'm probably going to get about $80 million by the time that contract, gets bought out. Right. I mean, those numbers are it's just like Major League Baseball contracts. They're just going to go up and up. So that maybe would factor into it a little bit. Why not swing for the fences? Sometimes you just kind of want to change the scenery. Lane's obviously been in Florida a little bit. I could see him, thriving in the Sunshine State there. But to your original point, a school like Ole Miss, if you've got kind of lightning in a bottle there, now that's the interesting point, right? Because he could absolutely make a king's ransom, and Ole Miss is basically backed into a corner trying to meet those demands. You think?
Yeah. Meanwhile, who's next on the chopping block?
Kind of depends on as the week turns, right?
Yeah, I mean,
and how and at what level are we talking? Major colleges, or are we talking, schools just down I-24? I mean, there's varying levels of schools that are looking to make changes right now.
You didn't have to get that specific geographically speaking, but I'm smelling what you're cooking, Rock. No, I was talking major, Power 4-ish. I just lost his name. Norvell isn't necessarily out of the woods, is he? Mike,
don't think so. No, that doesn't feel like it. And Florida State, after, like I mentioned last week, after talking all that talk, they've really stunk up the place in ACC play in the last 2 years, and the fact of the matter is, nationwide, everybody kind of views the ACC as the third best conference at a minimum. They are not in the Big Two conversation. So if you're not winning there, FSU is going to try and maybe find somebody that is. Another name to keep your eyes on, the folks in East Lansing are not happy at all with Jonathan Smith. And that was the point a minute ago about quick turnarounds. The plug is getting pulled quicker and quicker. And just in his second season, wouldn't be surprised to see things go. These public perceptions too, right, Mo? If Kelly doesn't lose, if they lose on a crazy play at the end of that game on Saturday night, LSU was wild enough they still might have fired him, but most other schools are probably going to keep you. But when you get trounced as a major favorite back-to-back weeks like James Franklin did, or if you get embarrassed and things already weren't going well for you like Brian Kelly did, they're pulling the plug on these guys.
It's crazy. Let's take a break as we continue the weekend wrap-up edition of Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. We'll come back. We'll talk a little bit more college football, among other things. Stick around.
The winning just got closer. All new Sportsbook, the latest gaming machines, live horse racing, and more. The Mid Gaming Hall, Kentucky Downs.
Winning just got closer.
Deep in a forest at Nashville Zoo, new creatures here for you to view. Phantoms graced in black and white swing high in trees of dappled light. In rocky crags, tall and steep, small antelopes with nimble feet. A wise old man with beard of white, a sentry perched on stony height. Amidst it all, a hunter lies, with coat of gold and steely eyes. A new adventure just for you. Leopard Forest at Nashville Zoo. Open now.
Busy bee, yeah, busy bee. If you need
Hold on, y'all. Hold on. I need to make a call. Hey, this is Brianna with Busy Bee. I'm giving you a call to let you know your technician is on his way.
833.
Bee, oh, busy bee. Guys, not yet. Not yet.
Busy bee, oh,
Now
busy
I'm ready,
bee.
guys.
Call 775-7833.
Custom Stone Handlers supplies over 600 distributors and suppliers with quality stone products. Along with Riverstone, we produce and distribute over 100 building, landscape, and other bulk products. Our goal is to provide quality products, service, and partnerships to ensure our customers' success. We firmly believe the measure of any person or company is how you treat other people and customers. Give them a call at 931-490-4990 or visit CustomStoneHandlers.com.
We continue the weekend wrap-up here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. That's Wade Neely. I'm Maurice Patton. We mentioned it during the rundown. Vanderbilt with a 17-10 win over visiting Missouri on Saturday. The number 10 Commodores getting a bump in the AP Top 10 this week as a result of that victory, moving up to number 9. They are 7-1 for the first time since 1941. It's a year before my dad was born. So do the math. Uncharted territory.
What was the date exactly? The month and day?
I don't know what the month was necessarily. Oh, you mean for Vanderbilt or my dad?
Yeah. Well, you can give us both. Yeah, might as well.
No, I don't remember. I don't know that I heard that. I think I just heard first time since 41 that they had been 7-1.
That's staggering, right? I'm thinking my immediate thought was, hey, we weren't even in World War II yet. I mean, that's what I made this comment to like 4 people over the weekend. I love Vanderbilt's success, obviously for the school and for the players and everybody. But I also love these just crazy trivia nuggets because they have not been there in so long. So and so rushed for 300 yards for the first time since
Right.
1902. And I love all of those little factoids that have come about as this run has continued.
And, as you look at the graphic there that Mark has popped up, Vanderbilt is ninth, Tennessee is 14th, coming off that interesting win up at Lexington over the weekend, and Memphis popping back into the top 25 with that win against South Florida. This is the second time this season that all 3 of our FBS teams have been ranked in the top 25, and I don't know when that has been the case prior to these 2 occurrences this year. Memphis fell right back out with that loss to UAB, and man, they got to be looking back at that and kicking themselves right now.
Got to be looking back and kicking themselves, but they bounced back with a nice win. It looked like USF was going to maybe rough them up in their own barn. So kudos for bouncing back. And yeah, you would have liked that, but they're still in pretty good shape. But they have no wiggle room from here on out. The American is absolutely insane this year, and I don't necessarily know. Memphis looks like the best team, and you would assume that the winner of that league is probably going to get the bid because there's so many good teams. But asking a team now to kind of run the table, yeah, you're right. That loss to UAB really did them no favors, even though they bounced back in a nice way this weekend.
Yeah, that's it's interesting what's going on in the American. Meanwhile, you got Boise kind of lurking out there as well still.
That feels like the only other real team because, yeah, it just seems like the winner of the American this year they just had so much success, and the hype is there too. We'll get our first crack at the playoff rankings next week, I believe. So that'll kind of set the stage, right? But Navy, can they run the table? What does that do for them? That's kind of the fun wrinkle. Do any of these teams have a shot? And going and beating a really, really good team from the SEC or Big Ten on the road in the first round of the playoffs? Maybe not. But the fact that we're having these arguments and celebrating kind of some successes of schools we normally don't is a lot of fun.
Yeah, and I think, to see those schools in that conversation, like you said, it's kind of cool for them. I think they realize their limitations to some degree, but at the same time, it's nice just to be in the conversation.
100%. I mean, the real sickos and football diehards have, they've lived and died on every CUSA game, an American game, is watching WAC football, the group of 5 guys, this is their bread and butter. And this is kind of their moment in the sun right now because a lot of folks across the country are, for the first time in the last 2 years, really paying a little more attention. I don't know that they're paying a lot just yet, but they're paying a little more attention to these leagues, which deserve to be celebrated because they have produced some quality teams over the years.
Absolutely. Going back to Lexington on Saturday night, 56-34, the final as UT got past Kentucky, took advantage of some Kentucky miscues and that kind of thing. But I think a lot of your UT faithful were, there's some consternation over the 34 that Kentucky put up. And, Tim Banks is a kind of polarizing figure in Vol fandom, I think. Probably not one of their better defensive performances. You feel like they've got to be better than that on that side of the ball, particularly as Oklahoma comes in this weekend. But it feels like to me, and we've had this conversation before, Wade, in regards to the Southeastern Conference. I think you just got to take a win and go on.
Yeah, sure, you would like, to go into Lexington and win 56-0. But the fact of the matter is, we just saw Texas nearly lose in Lexington 2 weeks ago. That could have been you if you weren't careful. And Tennessee had every opportunity. I thought this game would be a lot closer just because Kentucky had delivered a little bit of an inspiring performance. And, they're still out there at least trying. But I thought Tennessee would have a little bit of a hangover. Was it their best game of the year? Maybe not overall. Offensively, you could maybe really make an argument. But, yeah, you're never going to play a perfect game, and you're going to have to celebrate every single week that you come out of a win, especially on the road like Tennessee did this weekend.
Yeah, and you talk about teams with no margin for error. I mean, they've already lost to Georgia and to Alabama. You know, their backs are really against the wall if they still harbor playoff hopes, I would feel like. And there's a lot that has to fall in their favor in addition to them having to win out. And you got number 9 Vanderbilt lurking at the end of the season.
Yeah, but that ironically works in their favor, right? I mean, normally you're not thinking Vanderbilt would serve as much of a quality win, but yeah, that is a chance for Tennessee to snag an extra one. The athletic college football playoff projections give Tennessee around a 23% chance. If you're a Tennessee fan, the good news is if you run the table, you're going to be in the college football playoff. The bad news is you got to run the table. And suddenly Oklahoma,
Mhm.
being at home and with their limitations offensively over the last 2 weeks, maybe with Mateer still recovering from an injury, you feel a little bit more confident. But yeah, Vanderbilt still lurking. I mean, if Tennessee were to win those games, they're going to be right there in the mix. But that is kind of the same situation we just mentioned with Memphis. Now you really have no margin for error. There are no more slip ups allowed for the Vols here.
Some better news even for the Vols coming away from the gridiron. Um, Tennessee assistant Josh Elander was introduced earlier today as the successor to Tony Vitello as head coach of the volunteer baseball program. So I think a lot of folks were happy with that, as opposed to Tennessee going outside the family, as it were, to come up with Vitello's replacement as he left to take over the San Francisco Giants managerial position. So continuity being achieved with that move, among other things.
Yeah, well, I'm curious your take on this as the resident baseball guy here. I don't have any frame of reference because on one hand, it seems like, yeah, keep the good vibes rolling, but I want to know, where they go in your mind from here.
I'm not sure because I don't know a whole lot about Elander, to be honest. But I feel like, given where you are in the cycle, I mean, you're in the middle of a semester. It's the timing for a departure wasn't great. A timing for a hire for a search wasn't great. And there seems to be a lot of good vibes around Elander, and like I said, it allows you to just kind of continue things with the same folks that were already in that clubhouse and that kind of thing. I think I don't think it was a concession move though. I mean, there's a lot of people seem to feel really good about what Elander brings to the situation. And you know, it's not like you have to fix a whole lot at Tennessee baseball, I don't think. So, hopefully it works out. Um, Again, obviously Vitello didn't put him in a great spot by making that move, but I don't think anybody's necessarily upset with him. I mean, you don't get many opportunities to become one of 30 of anything. And so when you're becoming one of 30 Major League Baseball managers, I guess if the opportunity presents itself, you really got to take it. So um, we'll see how it goes. But I just feel like the continuity is the biggest thing in going with Elander in that spot.
Yeah, and I'm real curious. With Tennessee, something that's kind of been lingering in my brain is even if you go out and get a massive hire, I don't necessarily know who that would have been, but if you go out and get a massive hire, is sometimes there's the right coach at the right time for the right program. And I just wonder if that was not the case with Tony V in Knoxville. And I'll be real fascinated to watch the next 2 or 3 years to see if they maintain, at least this year, you would think they'll maintain a pretty high level of status quo. But what did Tony V max out the Vols' capabilities is what I'm really kind of fascinated by over these next couple of years.
And I think it's a fascinating question. And, sometimes everything does come together at the right time. Like you said, the right person, the right personnel, the right opportunities, that kind of thing. With the NIL situation being what it is, and there was talk that there was some concern about, baseball money, in a vacuum and in comparison to some other programs on that campus. So, getting all of that ironed out and keeping everybody happy and that kind of thing, it's a lot. And there's a lot that Danny White has got to manage as athletics director. So, a lot of people all trying to be number one in their respective sport. And sometimes being number one in your sport means you got to be number one or close to that on your campus. So we'll see how all of that gets figured out.
Yeah, and that's another interesting part too, right? That just internal campus evaluation. Tony V, a rock star personality and kind of a true statesman and spokesman for the Vols, not just the program, but Tennessee love to roll him out at any available opportunity, and that comes naturally to him. That's not necessarily any coach's natural instincts there. But you wonder too, is that same level of support, whether that's fan or financial, going to continue? It's one thing to say, hey, we're all of a sudden a baseball school now. Well, you weren't necessarily before at the highest level.
Mm-hmm.
Now all of a sudden you kind of are. Are you really going to continue that, or you have maybe a little bit of a fall off, and then you kind of just go back to the old ways? This is an interesting case study for me because they kind of burst like a supernova onto the scene these last 2 or 3 years. And if they commit to it, it feels like they could stay there, but that's a big if.
And another concern, Wade, as you kind of walk through that, is a little bit of a fall off in the Southeastern Conference, particularly as it's constructed now with Texas and Oklahoma. A little bit of a fall off can be a lot of a fall off if you're not careful.
Right. And yeah, we've seen it across a number of different sports. You're right there on the brink, and for some reason your coach leaves, or for some reason it just doesn't come together and you don't win that big championship, conference or national, and then you just kind of end up toiling in mediocrity, and that is not a great place to be. There's only room for a select few at the table, and Tennessee feels like it has strong-armed its way to the table. Question is now, can they keep their seat there?
Before we get out of this segment of college athletics talk, want to mention, Wade, are you familiar with the name Drew Mestemaker?
I can't say that I am.
North Texas redshirt freshman quarterback.
Oh, this guy. Yeah, okay.
This guy. Threw for 608 yards this past weekend. He is the Associated Press Player of the Week. Again, redshirt freshman. Never started a game at the high school level. Bet on himself, walked on at North Texas, and he is torching folks in the Sun Belt. Again, 608 yards this past weekend in their win over Charlotte, which, I mean, it's Charlotte. Take that for what it's worth. But 608 yards against air is pretty impressive. Sets a conference record, that number does. And I'm sorry, I said Sun Belt. I forgot that North Texas was in the American. Again, 37 of 49. North Texas 7-1 on the year. You're not hearing them in that group of five talk necessarily, but heck of a season thus far for the Mean Green out of Denton.
Yeah, they're in there, or they were in there, and then that loss to South Florida where they got absolutely waxed a couple weeks ago kind of threw them out. That was on a Friday night. But credit to them, because 3 Fridays later, they take care of Charlotte in convincing fashion. Yeah, I didn't remember the name, but at Friday night, Mestemaker absolutely delivering a performance for the ages. And Charlotte led that game, if I'm not mistaken, like 21-7 at some point, or 17-7, and then just got absolutely trounced. Yeah, they're bad, obviously, but credit to North Texas, not just putting up some gaudy numbers, but also kind of overcoming a little adversity on the road.
It's just amazing to me. A guy who never started a game at the high school level is doing this. And I don't know who was in front of him. I didn't get to do that much due diligence on this, unfortunately, but I'd love to know where that kid is.
Yeah, we love to talk about that with Cam Warden running the wing tee. Sometimes you just scratch your head at some of the coaching and implementations of high school players, and then that leads to recruiting. Chalk this up for another case. Yeah, what was going on down there? Bubbling beneath the surface. Mestemaker's like, I could go out and get you some yards.
Clearly, yeah, would seem so. Let's take a break as we conclude our number one of the weekend wrap-up edition of Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. We will come back for our number two. We'll talk a little baseball, and still ahead, we have CHAREAN Williams from Pro Football Talk coming in around 3:20 or so to talk a little pro football. Stick around. Jones & Lang Sporting Goods here in Columbia has been outfitting teams, officials, and anybody else from T-ball to college for 50 plus years. Be sure and check them out at 931-388-8060 or online at jonesandlang.com. Jones & Lang Sporting Goods, the look of a winner.
Zion Christian Academy at zioneagles.org or 931-388-7531. You can schedule your appointment to visit their beautiful campus. Again, zioneagles.org or 931-7531 to schedule your visit today.
Is your internet slowing you down? It's time for an upgrade. Whether you're at home, working from your home office, or at your business, it's time to unleash the speed you need with speeds up to 1 gig at CPWS for as low as $70 a month. Give us a call, 931-375-7777. Local service, local support, CPWS.
Piggly Wiggly, located in Neely's Mill Shopping Center, is Columbia's locally owned and operated Cost Plus 10 grocery store dedicated to serving the community with low prices and smiling faces. Piggly Wiggly offers fresh, hand-cut meats daily as well as daily hot plate lunches from their deli counter. You're certain to see smiling faces and a helping hand when you're here at Piggly Wiggly. Come by and check out our fresh produce, high-quality meats, and more. Down home, down the street, we'll see you at the Pig.
It's hour number 2 of the weekend wrap. Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. I'm Maurice Patton. That's Wade Neely. World Series swings out to the West Coast for Game 3 tonight, and it sounds like Max Scherzer is getting the ball for the Blue Jays in this one. The 41-year-old who got a start in the ALCS and was solid but not spectacular for the Blue Jays in that one. So giving him another run and see how it goes against that Dodger lineup.
Yeah, going to need it feels like, right? I mean, who knows? Because seen kind of two different contrast in games 1 and game 2, offense versus defense in those two particular games. Feels like, though, you're going to need a quality pitching performance if you're Toronto to kind of, if nothing else, set the tone. You know, maybe I know complete games are back in fashion now, but after game 2, but it doesn't feel like Scherzer would give you 9 innings. So with that being said, at least give you a quality start, mitigate the damage, or maybe even try and keep you scoreless there, and then just hopefully your offense can rally. That does feel, you're right, kind of like the onus is a little bit on the ageless wonder in another World Series moment here.
Yeah, I mean, and it's crazy. I mean, the Blue Jays in game 1 got the youngster Yesavage, and got a solid performance out of him in the 11-4 victory in game 1. And then you've got, like you said, the ageless wonder here in game 3, Max Scherzer, trying to kind of turn the clock back a little bit for the Blue Jays here.
Yeah, and, you know, with the day off, presumably that gives you a little more relief in terms of your bullpen there. So whether it's Toronto or LA, we're at the, we're in the World Series. And so we see the leash get shorter and shorter on your starting pitching as the playoffs, really from the start of the playoffs, but they kind of feel like they get shorter and shorter as the series increase. So if Scherzer's bad early, probably going to see, turn out the lights maybe in terms of Scherzer there. But as far as your offense, they're going to need to maybe deliver the goods, because otherwise you're really banking on Scherzer throwing kind of a gem. And I don't necessarily know that I like that game approach or that path to victory for Toronto. If the offense needs to show up, that way if Scherzer even stumbles a little bit, you got a little relief, because I don't fancy him to go out and just twirl a masterpiece tonight.
Yeah, you don't expect that. I mean, you shouldn't expect that, I don't think. But yeah, he's a professional. He's been around a long time, been in a lot of situations. I mean, if he can give you 5 solid,
you'll take that.
Yeah, you got to like your chances there. I mean, it's not going to be 9 like Yamamoto has done each of his last 2 times out. I mean, like you said, complete games. You can actually throw complete games in the postseason. And of all people, the Dodgers, who, I mean, we've seen throw openers out there and that kind of thing, to let this guy go 9 each of his last 2 times out in obviously pivotal situations. It's a different approach for Dave Roberts and the Dodgers.
Different approach. Different approach, you know, and this goes into anybody that maybe throws a complete game. You know, the game kind of has to break a certain way in your favor for you to really, really pull that off. But yeah, LA with a massive victory in the game versus the Brewers there. So that was kind of, might as well. Why even get somebody? These guys are resting in the bullpen. Why even, bother them and make them at least stand up and stretch, right? So that was that kind of script. And then, smaller margin of victory, and they got the run support late, 4 runs in the 7th and 8th combined there. Yamamoto too, he reminds you, he's really almost as close kind of to a modern day Greg Maddux in the sense this dude's got masterful control, didn't walk a single batter in those 9 innings the other night. He's the one guy that's very crafty and very efficient with his pitches. And so back-to-back complete games, saving some innings for the bullpen. That is a massive kind of hidden win for the Dodgers, even on a night where they already even the series 1-1.
Yeah, and to your point, with the off day yesterday, already you were able to keep your bullpen seated on Saturday night. You got the off night yesterday, so everybody down there is good to go tonight. So it'll be interesting to see what their approach on the mound is tonight.
Yeah, and on the other side, the Blue Jays did throw Gossman out there, and it felt like going into the World Series, but no matter which game he pitched, that they would have to at least bank on a win from him to have a path. We didn't necessarily see Game 1 unfolding the way that it did, so maybe that changed the calculus slightly. But him not getting the win, and him he did go 6 2/3. Toronto was still in that game, even though the score, is what it is. But I'm not breaking news by any means tonight. This is kind of your swing game, and it feels like if Toronto does win, we really got a series again. But it feels like if they lose, the window could be closing.
Yeah. Glass now set to go for the Dodgers tonight. Shane Bieber for the Blue Jays in Game 4 against Shohei. He of the 10 strikeout, 3 home run game a couple weeks ago. And so, yeah, to your point, this does kind of feel like the swing game, because for a guy not that far removed from Tommy John surgery, Ohtani really kind of feels like a sure thing whenever he takes him out.
Feels like a sure thing, and it's not just because, he's not going out and, pitching 5 innings and then they win the game 9-2, and, that's all you see. I mean, he's kind of commanding. I mean, like you said, 10 Ks in the game. He's blowing people by on the mound, showing no ill effects, and delivering some masterfuls that we know what obviously you can do at the plate, but to see him kind of turn it around this quickly on the mound has been one of the real storylines of this postseason.
Yeah. So, Dodgers trying to repeat. All of a sudden, it's the first team to 3 wins with a 1-1 series at this point, heading back to LA. So, World Series continues tonight, 7:00 on Fox. Away from the World Series, interesting new name in the dugout for the Mets. Troy Snitker has been named the Mets hitting coach. If that last name sounds familiar, there's a reason. Son of former Braves manager Brian Snitker, who had been in the Astros organization, had been Houston's hitting coach. So
fly the coop.
Yeah, fascinating move, feels like to me.
Don't know any of the real X's and O's and bona fides here, but and the Mets kind of just back to the drawing board, right? It just feels
Mhm.
like throwing stuff at a wall, see if it sticks. Maybe it'll work out for old Troy there.
Um, Snitker was dismissed earlier this month, according to an article on ESPN, after 7 seasons with the Astros. So it's an interesting hierarchy that they've got. Hitting coach used to be hitting coach, but Snitker will work under Jeff Albert, who has been named director of Major League Hitting
Hmm.
and will be in uniform. He had been the Mets director of hitting development. Man, that's I'd love to see a major league team's flow chart just in terms of on-field personnel and what that looks like. The last 2 years, the Mets had co-hitting coaches, Eric Chavez and Jeremy Barnes. Both of them were dismissed at the end of a underachieving Mets season. Chavez then publicly lamented that employing 2 lead hitting coaches produces confusion. Imagine that.
Mm-hmm.
So
sounds a little Tennessee professional football team in Nashville-ish with some of that flow chart there.
Apparently, Snitker to the Mets isn't the only move that the Mets have made. First base coach and former Vandy boy Antoine Richardson have not come to terms on a contract. Richardson is expected to leave the Mets at the expiration of his current deal. Richardson and Soto have become particularly close this past season. He's been lauded for his work with their base runners. Soto stealing a career high 38 bases this year, 26 more than he had stolen in any other season. So kind of unlocked a little talent with Soto there, which anything that he can give you for the money that he's getting, it would seem to be a good thing. So but as we say, Mets gonna Met, right?
Mets gonna Met. They spend a lot of money. They're the anti-Dodgers in that sense. Spend a lot of money, not getting a lot of pay for it.
Baltimore seems to have ended its managerial search. The Orioles have named former bench coach for Cleveland as their new coach. And I'm trying to come up with a name. Craig Albernaz. It's official. They did it on an off day during the World Series because they don't typically like breaking this kind of news during postseason play. But Albernaz had been associate manager with Cleveland. Kind of off the radar a little bit. 43-year-old Albernaz, one-time manager of the Bowling Green Huts in the Tampa Bay organization back in 20. Previous managerial experience Green and at Hudson Valley the season before that in 2017, both in the Tampa Bay Rays organization. The past 2 seasons with the Guardians, they've had some success. So I don't know if those positions are as 43 or turns 43 on Thursday, the new manager at Baltimore.
That's a franchise that definitely, we talked about the Mets a minute ago, but they didn't spend obviously that amount of money, but Baltimore really underachieved this year. So if he can come in and bring some of the good vibes, if he can come in and bring the September regular season vibes that the Guardians had, Baltimore will be happy. But they stunk up the joint this year.
Yeah, that would be a nice get for Baltimore if that's the case. And to your point, yeah, they really had some expectations this past year and came out early and kind of fell on their face and cost Brandon Hyde his job. But it feels like there's some talent there, but at the same time, that's a tough division to get it done in too. So, because obviously you're not going to outspend the Yankees and the Red Sox. You're not going to outdevelop the Blue Jay, the Rays, and oh yeah, the Blue Jays are in the World Series.
Yeah, best of luck. That goes back to that first hour when I said these highly competitive folks. There's only 30 of those gigs, and to get to that level, you have to kind of have some screws loose, and you got to be so hyper competitive. Stepping into a situation like that, not for the faint of heart, but it sounds like Albernaz is ready to take the next step.
I guess. I mean, ready is a relative term, I guess. But yeah, I mean, like you said, there's a lot to compete with if you are Baltimore in that division. So strap it on, Mr. Albernaz. You're up.
Hopefully his
Just go ahead and
deal,
take-
real quick, hopefully his agent maybe got him a better deal than Kurt Suzuki. We didn't get a chance to really run through him last week on the show, but kudos to him for, stepping off the streets basically and becoming the new Angels manager, but only on a 1-year deal. You got to come up with a better deal than that, man, because we just spent a whole hour talking about the college football coaches and how much they can get paid and how quickly the plug gets pulled. You got to come up with a better deal than a 1-year term.
Why would you sign a 1-year deal? I mean, you must want to be a manager. You must want to be a manager really bad. Yeah, okay, 1 year, sure, why not? Oh, I mean, we know that they're hardly. It's not worth the paper that it's written on. I get all that, but still, 1 year. Yeah, that was.
Maybe Suzuki's looking at that and saying, I don't know if I want to be a manager, but I'll try it for a year. And if I like it, I'll keep doing it. And if I don't like it, I'm done. Maybe that plays into it. Or maybe, you obviously, once you get that managerial mint, it's like that NCAA rubber stamp there. Once you go NCAA, almost anybody's willing to take a shot on you. So maybe he's giving it just a trial run this year. Be fun to monitor over there in the AL West.
Yep, no doubt. Let's take a break here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. When we come back and continue the weekend wrap up, we will be joined by CHAREAN Williams of Pro Football Talk. Stick around.
Deep in a forest at Nashville Zoo, new creatures here for you to view. Phantoms graced in black and white swing high in trees of dappled light. In rocky crags, tall and steep, small antelopes with nimble feet. A wise old man with beard of white, a sentry perched on stony height. Amidst it all, a hunter lies, with coat of gold and steely eyes. A new adventure just for you. Leopard Forest at Nashville Zoo. Open now.
Jones & Lang Sporting Goods here in Columbia has been outfitting teams, officials, and anybody else from T-ball to college for 50 plus years. Be sure and check them out at 931-388-8060 or online at jonesandlang.com. Jones & Lang Sporting Goods, the look of a winner.
Piggly Wiggly, located in Neely's Mill Shopping Center, is Columbia's locally owned and operated Cost Plus 10 grocery store dedicated to serving the community with low prices and smiling faces. Piggly Wiggly offers fresh, hand-cut meats daily, as well as daily hot plate lunches from their deli counter. You're certain to see smiling faces and a helping hand when you're here at Piggly Wiggly. Come by and check out our fresh produce, high-quality meats, and more. Down home, down the street, we'll see you at the Pig.
The weekend wrap-up continues here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. That's Wade Neely. I'm Maurice Patton. Our next guest we had on a while back, and I was petrified the whole time that she was with us that I was mispronouncing her name because I've read it, but I've never heard it. Ms. Williams, could you please pronounce your first name for me?
It's CHAREAN.
CHAREAN.
Yes.
Thank you, ma'am. I appreciate
No worries.
that because well, I hate getting anybody's name wrong, but again, I was just kind of taking a chance. But thank you so much for taking some time with us on this Monday afternoon. There's everything and nothing going on here in Nashville because the Titans lost yet again, but made a move earlier today. I'm not sure what exactly it does, but defensive back Roger McCreary is no longer a Titan. He is now a Los Angeles Ram. And, you know, to some degree, it feels like rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic in terms of what it does for the 2025 season. But yeah, across the league, what are the expectations for this team at this point?
Well, that's a really good question. You know, it looks like they're headed toward another top, if not the number one overall pick. And, you know, I think at that point you want to develop the quarterback and develop and hope to build something for, you know, 2026. My problem with all these teams is, and the Titans aren't alone. I mean, just look around the league, different teams that have done it, but they drafted quarterback number one overall, Caleb Williams, whoever, Trevor Lawrence, whoever you want to talk about, and they leave the coach in place. They draft this quarterback, and then they move on coach the next year. So it's basically just a lost year of development because you're starting over with a new coach, a new system, a new play caller, new offensive coordinator, everything's new. So you wasted a year with your young quarterback. And I personally think that's why you're seeing a lot of these quarterbacks drafted later in the draft who go to better teams, who are teams more ready to win, who keep their head coach from one year to the next, better succeed than some of these number one overall picks at quarterback. Seen it repeatedly, and teams just don't learn their lesson that if you draft a quarterback number one overall, you've got to commit to your coach and your system for at least 3 years to give the kid a chance to develop. And now the Titans are in the same situation that some of these other teams have been in, and they better get this hire right, or Cam Ward's career is probably going to suffer mightily for it. And it's not fair to him.
And, you know, one of the biggest things is you need to have an offensive line in front of a kid. And, you know, we mentioned last week he had been sacked 30 times in 5 games or 30 times in 6 games. And, you know, when you start talking David Carr in terms of rookie quarterbacks, that's not a good breath to be mentioned in. And I'm not sure what the number of sacks was yesterday for him, but I know I saw him on the ground a lot. Just more to the lack of development that you're talking about.
Yeah, and that's another problem with these teams that draft number one overall is they don't have the offensive line in place. They don't have the weapons in place necessarily that a quarterback needs to succeed. It's not just him. A quarterback can't come in and magically turn around a team. I mean, you look at what Peyton Manning went through before he finally got it right, and they finally got it right by getting him an offensive line, by getting him weapons in Marvin Harrison and Reggie Wayne and other guys, Edgerrin James and other guys that they had there. They finally got it right, but it took years. It's not just an overnight thing. So to your point, I mean, they've got to get to better everywhere to help this kid succeed. And they've got to get the coach. They've got to get the coach right. And they've got to get the offensive coordinator right. And you get that right, and you bring in some parts, which they should have room to do that. They're probably going to have a top pick again somewhere up there. Spend that on helping this kid get weapons, get an offensive line, get help to help him succeed, because he can't do this alone. I mean, if you just look at his numbers, they were decent yesterday. He had a decent game. But you need more than just a quarterback to win, and they've just got to get him help.
Charean, we're a couple months presumably away from maybe seeing a head coach officially get named, but I am curious. You can't take anything for certain with this organization these days, but in the approach, do you think Tennessee maybe fancies going down the offensive, quote unquote, road again, offensive coordinator or offensive minded type path to continue to develop this guy? Or do they maybe hire the other side of the ball and then try and bring that Cam up to speed with a coordinator?
Well, I think a lot of teams tend to go the offensive route, and for one simple reason, and it's a good reason, is because if your head coach, if it's his system, he's the play caller, he's kind of the guy, and you bring in an offensive coordinator to help him, then your system's never going to change. So Ben Johnson, for instance, in Detroit, left Detroit. So now you got to get another offensive coordinator in there to call the plays, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, we see it all the time with teams where if your defensive coordinator leaves, it's much easier to replace a defensive coordinator than it is to place an offensive coordinator in a system, if that makes sense. So if your offensive coordinator essentially is your head coach, then as long as your head coach is there, it's going to be the same system. It's going to be the same plays. It's going to be the same play caller probably, and all of that. So I just think, especially when you have a kid who was a number 1 overall pick, who you expect to be really good in this league, then I think you go on the offensive side of the ball. You look for some offensive guru, whoever that might be, and you go get him, and he's your guy. I mean, I think that's what you're looking for, because you've spent all this draft capital on Cam Ward. You've got to make sure that you help him succeed. And if he doesn't succeed, it was not for a lack of trying on your part, that you hired the right guy as a head coach / offensive coordinator, however that might work out, and that you got the weapons around him to try to help him succeed. So I would expect them to go offense just because they have Cam Ward. And I think lots of coaches are going to be interested in the Titans job because they have Cam Ward. You look at this draft class coming up. If I'm a coach with options and I'm looking at some of the quarterbacks and the teams I'm looking at don't have a quarterback, I don't know if there's any quarterbacks out there that in this draft who are going to step right in and help you win. I would much rather go coach Cam Ward than one of these guys coming out of college. I just think he's better than any guy coming out of college in this 2026 draft.
I'm also curious. Yeah, we've got 8 games worth of tape on this guy, Charean. Right. I mean, and that to me is the real worm on the end of the hook there for reeling in potentially a coach is, hey, you got Ward. Yeah, you don't maybe have anything else, but you got him. And I'm curious, how big of a selling point through 8 games is that in your mind? Is enough good tape out there to maybe reel in somebody?
Yeah, I think it's good. I think his tape is good. I think he's shown enough stuff that a coach who has options is going to look at that situation and say, I really like Cam Ward. I think we can win with Cam Ward. We just got to get other pieces around him and we can make it happen. I think Caleb Williams is probably a good example. He had a good year last year. To me, he's starting to take that next step with Ben Johnson. I think they've hired the right head coach. He's the offensive coordinator. He calls the plays. I think he's done a really good job. And I think you're starting to see Caleb Williams' development. I would expect the Titans to do something along those lines, same type progression. And I think you're going to see Cam Ward take that next step. Cam Ward may even be better than Caleb Williams. We're going to find that out. But I think you've seen enough on film that coaches are going to say, I can win with this guy. I really like this guy. I'm interested in this job because of Cam Ward.
Charean Williams of Pro Football Talk joining us here on Main Street Sports today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. Charean, having said all that, are there any names that jump out at you? And I mean, I know that we are a long way from silly season and there are going to be more positions that open up and that kind of thing, but is there anybody that you're hearing or anybody that you think might be particularly interested or might be of particular interest to this team?
Yeah, I don't have any coaches off the top of my head who I would say he would be a great fit there. I mean, you do look at a guy like a Mike McCarthy, who's been successful at 2 different stops, won a Super Bowl title in Green Bay. He's he's made it known he wants to coach again. Had 3 consecutive, did a lot for Dak with the Cowboys. He was not very successful last season, but I don't think, honestly, that was his fault as much as it was that the not spending in free agency and not doing some things to help them last year. But you do look at a guy like that. I think he wants to get back in. I think he would have interest in trying to develop Cam Ward, a young quarterback. He's developed young quarterbacks his entire career. You know, there was a report yesterday that Sarkisian might be interested in an NFL job. I think he's been a good developer of quarterbacks. I think you'd probably, if he is truly interested, now he came out and said he wasn't interested. But if he is, I think you have to look at a guy like a Sarkisian who has done a lot to develop quarterbacks. I think those are a couple names off the top of the head that you know you'd have to at least look at and talk to and figure out if they fit what you want with Cam Ward. He is going to be the when you hire and I would involve him in the process. I would let him sit in on some of the head coach interviews because he's your guy, and the coach, this next hire and this quarterback are going to be tied together. They are going to succeed or they're going to fail together. It's all going to boil down. The coach has to believe in the quarterback has to believe in the coach. And that's what it boils down to. I would involve Cam Ward in this process and let him sit in on some of these interviews and have him ask questions and see how he feels about some of these coaches that they interview. You don't let him make the decision, but you do get his input on things. I think that's very important because these guys are going to be married.
You know, you mentioned his performance yesterday, 22 of 38 for 259, had a touchdown, had a pick, got sacked 4 times. I mean, he was a bright spot in an otherwise dreary ball game for the Titans. And again, you know, you've already fired your coach. You've got an interim coach in Mike McCoy. It's tough to already be playing out the string at this point of the season, but it seems like all the Titans are trying to do right now is just get to the end of the year.
Yeah, it does. And I think that's why I think you're going to see them trade and get some picks and make some moves. The deal with the trade deadline is so early in the NFL. So it's next Tuesday, 3 p.m. Central Time, which is what we go off of. And so, you know, there's very few teams who feel like they're out of it. The Titans are one of those teams. They're out of it. We know that. They know that. Everybody knows that. There's players on their team who are very valuable, who can bring valuable draft picks to them. And so I'm not going to be surprised if they make some moves over this next week, some more moves and trade some players. And if fans probably aren't going to be happy, but for the future of the team, I think it's the right thing to do if you can get really something of value, more value than you would get trading them in April or holding on to them or whatever the case may be. But I do think there will be calls made to the Titans about some of their players. They've got some really good players on the team, but you also have to think about the future. Like, is this what's the contract situation of this player? Is he going to help me beyond this year? And so some of those guys that you might look to move might be on the last year of their deal. And maybe they don't want to come back to Tennessee. Maybe you already know that. And maybe you're already going to move on from them. So it's that type of player I'm talking about. Titans maybe looking to move. If a guy has 2 or 3 years left on his contract and he's playing well for you, those are not the type of players that you want to get rid of. But guys who are on the line, and I don't know their contract situation, so I'm not going to say names specifically, but some of those guys who are in the last year of their deals, those are the guys you want to look to probably move to get something of value of them in return if you can get more than what you would get in a compensatory pick.
Shereen, I want to ask you. Yeah, go ahead, Mo.
No, I was just going to say, it sounds like you just described the guy that just got moved. Again, cornerback Roger McCreary going to the Rams.
Yeah.
The Titans got a conditional 5th-round pick. They sent McCreary and their conditional 6th-round pick to the Rams. McCreary is in the last year of his rookie deal and will be a free agent at the end of the year. So there you go. More of those type deals maybe on deck.
Yeah.
Sounds like.
Yeah, and I think you listen to those types of offers for players in the last year of their deals who you think you might not be able to re-sign or you're ready to move on from or whatever the case may be. But those guys with multiple years left on their deals, that's not the guys you're looking to move. You want to build around those players who are good players who have multi-years left on their deals. But some of these guys in the last year of those deals, those are the guys you're looking to move and get some draft picks and get some help for next year. You're already thinking about now. I mean, you've got to already be thinking about next year and what you're going to do and possibly who you're going to hire, or at least the, like we were talking about offensive or defense, how you're going to lean that way and what you need. I mean, you're already looking at 2026 now. This is not about 2025 anymore. It's about developing Cam Ward as much as you possibly can, about winning as many games as you possibly can. I mean, I'm not a big let's tank and all that sort of stuff. If you win the game, you win the game. And just try to start building toward 2026. That's really what it's about. The Cam Ward's development right now, and whatever future draft picks you can get, that's what you're looking to do the rest of the season. I hate it for the fans. Like, these fans, they don't want to see a 1-7 team. I mean, why do you even want to go out? You've spent all this money on tickets. If you're a season ticket holder, it's tough. I know how tough it is. And you want to see the team win. And I hope for these fans' sake that Cam Ward turns into a really great player and they have something to root for in the future, hopefully starting in 2026.
Shereen, other side of the spectrum, simple question. They're 7-1, but how good are the Colts in your mind?
I haven't seen a ton of them, and I was just thinking that yesterday as I was watching highlights of the game. I would really like to see more of them than what I've seen. Or clips and a little bit after the game and all that. I think Daniel Jones has been a godsend for this team. My question is, if you're going to name an MVP of it, because I do think that they have 2 MVP candidates. So, but if you're going to pick one, like, who do you pick? Do you pick Jonathan Taylor or you pick Daniel Jones? Would Jonathan Taylor be doing what he's doing without Daniel Jones? Would Daniel Jones be doing what he's doing without Jonathan Taylor? And I don't know the answer to that. I think they're both MVP candidates right now, and I'm not sure that either of them will be doing what they're doing without the other. And this has just been a godsend for Daniel Jones to wind up where he's ended up, to be playing like he's playing on this team. And he's, frankly, from the Colts side, it's been a godsend that they were able to sign him. I think they're good. I think they're a good team. I think they're obviously going to win that division. The question is, can they get the top seed in the AFC? We're going to see them play more better teams as we go down the line. I can't wait to see, some of the teams they're going to play, to see how they match up, but they're definitely good. I mean, I think guys like Michael Pittman and Alec Pierce, I just think they're underrated. I think they're really good receivers. Their offensive line's always been really good. So I'm excited to see some of the teams they're going to play and see them get in the playoffs to see what they can do. They've been the surprise of the entire NFL. There was no possible way I thought they'd be 7-1, the best team in the AFC with the best record, doing what they're doing with Daniel Jones at quarterback. I never thought that would happen. I don't think anybody else did either. I never thought they'd have a chance even to win that division. And they're running away with it. So good for them. They've done a great job there. And again, it all went back to, they had the other pieces. They didn't have the quarterback, and now they have the quarterback.
And to your point a moment ago, both guys are listed. They're both tied for 7th in the MVP betting odds. Daniel Jones and Jonathan Taylor, both 20-1. So even Vegas can't differentiate between the two. They're playing such complimentary football right now. It truly is hard to decipher who's helping who or who's leading, in a sense, because they're both just doing so well. I also wanted to ask you, Shereen, what is going on with the Texans, who are suddenly sneaky, having won 3 of their last 4?
Yeah, I've seen every one of their games. They're one of the teams that I've covered since I'm in Texas primarily. They're playing much better than they were. I think they simplified their offense some these last couple games. probably not so much the Seattle game. They didn't look good in that one. But I really thought Phil Collins, they didn't have Christian Kirk. I thought they simplified their offense, and I thought it worked better than what they've been trying to do offensively. They have no offensive line, so they're getting Stroud killed. Back to your point of having an offensive line. They're getting Stroud killed. But, they did shorter passes and dump offs and some easy throws and all of that. I just thought their offense looked much better and much more productive. Now, they still get bogged down in the red zone. They were 1 for 5 in the red zone, maybe, I think is what they were yesterday. So they're kicking a lot of field goals, and that doesn't win you a lot of games. So they sort of kind of turned it around. Are they going to catch the Colts? Probably not. They're going to have to win a lot of games to even have a chance to get a wild card, but they're playing much better offensively. And you look at their defense. I mean, their defense is a top 2 or 3 defense in the league. They were number 1 in scoring defense last week, and I'm pretty sure they're probably still number 1 today. Their defense is just playing outstanding. They're not giving up very many points, so they're keeping them in games. If the offense can do anything, they do have a chance to probably get a wild card.
Well, that was my thinking is, they're kind of peaking or rounding into form at least, other than going up to Seattle on Monday night and laying an egg there. But they're kind of rounding into form. Schedule is softening up a touch, and then Indy's schedule is kind of strengthening a touch. So I don't know that it's necessarily a completely done deal, but Indianapolis continues to kind of just mystify me every week with the level that they're playing at. So that's why I kind of wanted to pick your brain about those 2 teams in particular.
Well, and I'm with you. Indy has just been the complete and total surprise of this season. To think what they've done and how they've done it is unbelievable. And you said 7th in the MVP odds. I hadn't looked in a couple of weeks. I think they're better than that. I have a vote. And you vote
and real quick, for what it's worth, Jonathan Taylor is a massive favorite for Offensive Player of the Year.
Yeah,
it's usually kind of that best running back. Running backs are not really allowed to win the MVP anymore. Correct. It feels like so. Maybe that's all he gets. But yeah, they're both 7th right now.
Well, if he can stay healthy, he's going to run away with that. But that's the question always with Jonathan Taylor: is he going to stay healthy? If he does, he's going to run away with that award, I think. And then it becomes a question of is Daniel Jones, an MVP candidate? It's not clear to me who it is. Of course, I live in Dallas-Fort Worth, and, Cowboys saying, oh, it's Dak, it's Dak. It's not Dak. Like, look at the record. It's not Dak. And then after yesterday, the way things went in Denver, it's certainly not Dak. And I think we can put that MVP Dak talk to rest now after what happened yesterday. But you look around the league, like, who is it? Is it Mahomes? Is it Baker Mayfield? Is it Daniel Jones? I mean, you start looking at the top quarterbacks, and normally – it's either the AFC or the NFC team that's the number 1 seed, and it's the quarterback off that team. That's generally how it works. So, it's got to be one of those top teams. You're going to have the best record. It's not going to be a team with the losing record. So Dak Prescott, as well as he's playing until yesterday, is not going to win the MVP award. He may be on the ballot, sort of like Joe Burrow last year. He had a great year. You look at his numbers, you're like, that guy not the MVP league. Their defense was so bad they didn't win enough games to give him a chance to win MVP. And so I think Dak's this year's version of Joe Burrow, no chance to win the MVP, and he's probably in a terrific season. You're gonna look at the stats and go, how did he not win the MVP? He didn't win it because the defense was so bad, couldn't overcome the defense giving up so many points for him to win it. Same with the Bengals last year.
CHAREAN Williams of Pro Football Talk joining us here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. CHAREAN, we've got the Commanders and the Chiefs tonight. Thoughts heading into Monday Night Football?
Yeah, it's going to be a good game. I'm kind of doubting it. The Chiefs look like they've kind of turned things around now. I personally, the last 2 weeks, that the Chiefs are the best team in football. I don't see anybody who's played better the last 2 weeks. They have Rashee Rice back, and they're really playing at a high level right now, offensively and defensively. Believe it or not, their kicker is the worst part of their game, I think, over these last 2 weeks. So I hope it's a good game. We've had so many double-digit. What do we have? All but one was a double-digit outcome yesterday, I think. Or in this week of games. So I would really like to see a close game come down to the end. But with all of Washington's injuries, I'm not sure that's going to be the case.
Wade, appreciate your pointing out that there was only one single-digit ball game yesterday because that was his Jets coming out on top of the Bengals,
Yeah.
39-38, getting their first win under Aaron Glenn.
Yeah, it was a really bad day of football. For that to be your closest game and to come down to the wire and the rest of them be blowouts, that was not a good weekend of football for the NFL.
Perfect kind of like mid-season, just shuffle the deck. It wasn't a great slate. There was not much competitive action, but it feels like, okay, that's behind us, and now we can kind of get on to the big boy games. The rest of the season is the way I'm taking that. But yes, I appreciate the hat tip because my beloved Jets got the first win, and even in Jets fashion, they had to work for it because it was grim, but ugly slate. I am curious, real quick, Charean, we saw the Giants make a little mini run a couple weeks ago, and things were seemingly going at least in the right direction. And then they kind of fell apart, obviously, with a loss to the Eagles. And then the season perhaps even takes a further hit with Scadaboo's injury. I'm curious, how bad will it maybe get down the stretch here? Or what are the Giants' realistic expectations as they get ready to close out without their star running back?
Boy, wouldn't you like to see Jackson Dart with Malik Neighbors and Scadaboo? I mean,
it'd be fun.
It would be fun. And I think they've got a very bright future. And that's another team. I hope they don't change the coach. I just, Brian Daboll, Giants fan, well, we need a new coach. But I think for Jackson Dart's development, the best thing is for them to stay there, have the same system, give him a second year. Give him a year with Malik Neighbors and Scadaboo, and I just like what they're building. I like the way he's played, but I don't have that much hope for them without Scadaboo, without Neighbors, and with what they have left and the schedule they have left. I don't know how many more games they're going to win. But again, it's a lot like the Titans. Just develop the kid as much as you can right now and start planning for 2026. And same deal. If they have guys on 1-year contracts and last year their contracts, I'm moving some of those guys and trying to get some picks and get ready for 2026.
Real quick, other team want to ask you about without Lamar Jackson in the lineup, the Ravens got a desperately needed win versus the Bears. Buying stock up or down on Baltimore as they get ready to try and make a run in the second half?
Well, they got the Dolphins on Thursday night. So you'd think that even though that's in Miami, that they'd have a good chance to win that. And then they're sitting there at 3-5. And you're like, maybe the Ravens are back in this thing with Lamar. They've got to get better on defense. I mean, they've been down there at the bottom, 30, 31, 32 on total defense, just giving up way too many yards. Nnamdi Madubuike, they've really missed him. He's been out most of the year. He's gone for the year. So, I really hope that that Lamar can get back and get healthy just because he's so fun to watch. And then we'll see if their defense can answer the call.
Charean Williams of Pro Football Talk joining us here on Main Street Sports today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. Charean, we really appreciate you taking some time with us today and look forward to catching up with you again.
Yeah, thank you guys. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Let's take our final break of the day here on the weekend wrap-up edition of Main Street Sports Today. We'll come back and we will wrap up the weekend. Stick around.
Being in Tennessee, we wanted to try to keep it as local as possible, so we have an entire section of our menu that is just dedicated to local whiskeys like Uncle Nearest, Jack Daniels, of course, George Dickel, Nelson Brothers, Greenbrier whiskey, and all of our taps are all local. From 2 o'clock until midnight, we've got food every day for you guys. A good handful of appetizers, some entrees, and a couple salads and things like that. My name is Ethan Kanata. Please come down and see us at the Pick Lobby Bar here at the Omni in Nashville.
Welcome back into the final segment of the weekend wrap-up edition of Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. That's Wade Neely. I'm Maurice Patton. Preds dropped a tough one yesterday, 3-2 to visiting Dallas after leading 2-1. 4-4-2 to this point of the season, which again, it's relative. After last year, 4-4-2 doesn't look so bad.
Yeah, it feels like they only had 4 wins last year when you kind of think about it like that. But you know, kind of the vibes. That's a tough man. I was at dinner last night talking with a friend and referenced the game that was being played versus the Stars. And I said, "Wait a minute, they just played last night." Tough to bounce back after a shootout on Saturday, but right back at home against a quality team. It's still too early to make real sweeping predictions about what's going to be the fate of this team this year, but it doesn't necessarily look as bad as last year. But then again, we're talking about a historically bad season last year, so take that with a little bit of a grain of salt. So would have been nice to see them string together back-to-back dubs, but it wasn't meant to be.
Yeah, the back-to-back dubs, the front end of that back-to-back was pretty scintillating as it went to a shootout there. That's wild stuff when it gets to that point. Feels like I didn't get to see any of that because I was tied up with some college football. But big win, 5-4 over the Kings.
Yeah, I mean, you're at the point, where any signs, any win or any feel goods, no matter the quality of competition, is going to be nice, right? And the Kings have, gotten off to a decent little start. They're kind of around the same ballpark in terms of points as the Preds, so not bad. You can't turn down anything. It could have been an epic weekend for Nashville in terms of hockey play, but they have to settle for just solid weekend. And you got another one coming right back with the Lightning in town tomorrow night. So ending the homestand with a win would be massive to kind of keep things, what little mojo there is, kind of keep that rolling.
Ending the homestand with a win, winning the homestand. It will have been a 5-game homestand by the time they get done with the Lightning before they go out. But yeah, a winning homestand would be kind of cool if you could get that done. Thus far, they've split these first 4. So big matchup tomorrow night against the Lightning to keep an eye on there. NASCAR has its championship 4 as William Byron won at Martinsville yesterday, making the Final 4 for the 3rd straight year. Big win for him to get in.
Keep things rolling. This is such a long season that it feels odd that you come down to this, and the way the format is set up, that it mimics, all other American sports where there's just a true kind of postseason, because it has been a grind all year long. And now you take a season, kind of like baseball, right? Where it just stretches and stretches and stretches. And then you boil it all down to 1 or 2 little races to kind of really determine the quote unquote champ. Hopefully leads to some theater out there on the track.
Byron wins it. It's Blaney, Elliott, Chastain, and Larson finishing up your top 5. And so again, your championship 4 drivers will be,
I got them pulled up: Denny Hamlin, Kyle Larson, William Byron, and Chase Briscoe. Those are in order of betting odds there. So Hamlin, a little bit of a small favorite at plus 200. And then you go in descending order with Larson, Byron, and Briscoe. Kind of all jumbled up, but not really surprised, right? I mean, it's NASCAR. It feels like it's so who shows up with the right car on the right day and takes it home.
I feel like you guys talked about it. I think y'all have Valera on Friday to talk about the MLS playoffs between the Boys in Gold and Intermessi. Again, game 1 didn't go the way the locals would have hoped.
No, tough result Friday. And NSC Valera told us that Nashville probably could not sit back and play kind of a pure defensive style and expect to win. And they didn't really do that. But they kind of made some interesting tactical moves. I didn't get to watch any of the game Friday, but just reading after the fact, they shift formations, kind of going away from a 4-2-2-2, which is the most tactics that have ever been talked soccer-wise on this show. They kind of moved to a 4-3-3. Didn't pan out. The good news is a point that Valera made on the show Friday. This is not all other countries in the world where the way they decide their playoffs format. NSC in that old format where you have 2 legs and away goals count and things of that nature. NSC would be entering this Saturday's match trailing on aggregate 3-1. So the bad news is you stunk up the joint. You lost down in South Florida on Friday. The good news is it is a completely new set of circumstances Saturday. And if you win that game, you force that winner take all third match the following week.
Cedric Coward, 27 points Saturday night. Memphis with a 128-103 win over visiting Indiana. Kind of took a little bit of the bad taste out of their mouth after that tough loss to Miami on Friday.
Yeah, tough loss to Miami, but oh, baby. The guy that a lot of Grizz fans were salivating over, they move up in the draft to take him, and already some early returns looking good. There's a lot to be excited about this young man. And going back to what we mentioned when the draft took place, this is a guy that had big offers from Duke, who figures to be pretty good yet again in college basketball this season. Turned down offers from Duke to stay in the draft, and so far looking good. But because he is wearing a Memphis Grizzlies uniform, the question will be hopefully keeping him healthy. He had some injury concerns that really probably limited his potential. But yeah, I was drooling in the middle of the summer, and I was drooling this weekend because he looks good so far.
Speaking of healthy, Ja Morant with 19 points in that win over the Pacers. Triple J with 17. Again, Coward 6 of 6 from the floor, from behind the arc. And I'm fascinated by his story, man, because I read a little bit about it, I guess, leading up to the draft, coming out of the draft. He was basically a D3 player at the start of his career.
Yeah. D3, and ends up at Cam Ward-ish in that sense, right? Go from an unheralded school to Wazoo and then on to the professional ranks. I'm trying to tamper my expectations. Some Grizzlies fans on draft night were frustrated with the trading up. I think if you got your guy, and that was a guy that was clearly their target, go and get him. And so far, so good. It's looked pretty well. Going to be a fun showdown with them tonight versus the Warriors, who look really strong through their first 3 games.
Man, they go out west for that one after back-to-backs on Friday and Saturday. The NBA schedule already, kind of taking its toll on folks, I would think. That's a tough stretch.
Tough stretch, but it is what it is, and so they're going to need to try and rally if they're going to get a win. And then they got Phoenix coming up on Wednesday. But don't you worry, Mo, because Friday we got a big opening round cup match versus the Lakers. Poor Grizzlies fans that wanted to sell their tickets for a profit. No LBJ coming to town Friday.
There we go. Hey, that's going to do it for the weekend wrap-up edition of Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. Be sure and come back tomorrow at 2 o'clock. Catch Wade and Calvin White as they hold it down. I will see y'all on Thursday. Have a great Monday evening. We'll catch up.